So our next presenter is Professor Zabta Khan Shinwari. He's currently director ACSE, and the topic of her speech is scholarly communications and countermeasures. I would like to introduce Zabta Khan, who is the UNESCO Laureate, specialized in molecular taxonomy and systematics, currently working as Professor Emeritus in Quaid-i-Azam University, Islamabad. He is treasurer to the Association of Academics and Societies of Sciences in Asia. He has worked with Pakistan Museum of Natural History, the National um, sorry Yes, his prime focus remains in preparedness, response, biosafety, surveillance, forecasting, and dual use education in biotechnology. He has authored 9 books, credited with 445 publications in impact factor journals, and supervised around 100 MPhil and Ph.D. scholars. So I welcome you, Professor Dr. Zabta Khan Shinwari. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Rabina, and may I request to mute the others because it's still on. Kasser Jamil, how are you? Can you mute your mic? Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rabina, for excellent introduction and all others. We had an excellent presentation in the morning, so she had hardly left anything for me to add to that. But what I'm going to do is to tell you what's happening, other aspects of the publication. So can you see my screen, Dr. Rubina?
We can see.
Great. When we talk about publications, I'm not going to tell you about the process. We already had enough from Dr. Kasser Jamil, a good friend of mine. But what I am going to talk to you is that this is the era when we need science more than ever. And that is why. I mean, on one aspect, we are concerned with the publication. Another aspect, we need science more than ever before. And the reason is because the social media, because we live in an era which was not there 20 years back. For example, if you look at the health system, you need a lot of issues, interventions to save life. And for that, people, when there is a shortage of oxygen, they go and they ask some different kind of opinion for you. For example, use a pressure cooker to get an oxygen for yourself, or you go to have such a misleading information that really some said go and drink cow urine, some said go and drink pure alcohol, and many other things which in fact really even the leaders of the countries, they were of suggestions such a drink bleach, for example, and they killed a lot of humans of this misinformation. So here is which tells us a lesson that we need a lot of science now than ever before. And in science, again, being a biologist, I will say biology will play a key role in the response of future crises. You have to now rethink about your curriculum right from the very beginning, that what should be taught to the children, at least to make them aware what is life and how can you save a life, and what is infodemic, what is misinformation, disinformation. So there are some basic things that we need to teach to our youth, and there is where I'm talking about biology is the one that will take you on, and you have to really for the community to make them aware, you have to teach them about the issues that are related to it, because this is not the first and last pandemic that we are having, God forbid, of the issues of the climate change and many other things that we are confronted with. We will have a lot of issues, so we need to be aware of all this, what's happening. Now, as Dr. Kasser Jamil said, we have other related issues, what we call it pseudoscience. And pseudoscience is from the people, as I said earlier, they advise you things that are really unproven options, unproven practices, just, oh, this is good, just have it. And that is where you need to be very, very careful. Many bogus COVID-19 therapies were in the market, and you receive on the social media a lot of information. Drink that plant, use that root, use that thing. So that is where you really need scientists have to come forward and use these medium of social media. I hope
Dr.
Dr.
Shinwari, sorry to interrupt. Can you please make the slides like with F5, go it like a big screen because it's not readable for the audience.
How is it now?
It's good now. Thank you. Please carry
Okay,
on.
okay. Great. So and when we talk about all this, and for scientists too, as earlier said by Madam Kasser Jamil, this COVID-19, you have not to restrict it to the human. For example, in Malaysia, they have recently detected in a dog, and there are many other animals that may keep it, because so far we are not 100% sure, let me tell you that, but it is that it came from a bat, from a market to an intermediate host pangolin, and then to human. But that can go vice versa. Like it can go to cats, it can go to other animals, and then be there. You may remove it, you may try to have something in human, but you may have then in the animals. So what I want to say is that now we need a kind of interdisciplinary research, and one of that, what we call it, is the One Health approach that we need to talk about. So what we need to do is that we have to understand the ethical aspect with this grave global threat. Our policies, how the government should be tackling with misinformation, how the scientists can help them, and how can we should not be using pandemic as an excuse to ignore the basic ethical principle, rightly said by Kasser Jamil, but there are many other things that societies are vulnerable to it. So, of course, we need good science, which is absolutely essential for an effective response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is, again, one other aspect is that science is mainly funded by the science funders, either government, public, NGOs, etc. So here is a critical role of those funders, that how can they put money in it and can help the community at large to find a cure, to find a really proper vaccine, and to reach everything to the common man. These are those work that had been done for COVID-19 in 30 different countries that had helped interdisciplinary research in finding and shortening the stay of a patient in a hospital. And these are the number of days that shows it, the thing that they shortened because of the various efforts of the international scientists. On one side, we preach about ethical science. On the other side, we should appreciate the scientists that they work really hard across the continent, interdisciplinarily, and they had it. So my focus, I'm just touching it. Later on, I'm sure Professor Ghazi is going to talk about this disinformation, what WHO call it infodemic. There was anti-vaccination movement, still there is. Highly educated people are reluctant sometimes to vaccinate themselves. We had information in our country for polio, we had problems for that. So here is that the mistrust in government responses people have, the stigmatization of the infected people, that when they are infected, people really, the psychological thing, Dr. Rubina may talk about it. So, and the delegitimization of science, that is the most dangerous. People say, oh, science has no response to all this, and we really have to find a way out of it. So when we talk about the preparedness about all this, we already had an experience in Ebola pandemic when we had it, the burial rituals that we have it, the social, sociology of the communities. In initial time of the pandemic, we had really problem when there was fighting in the hospital for dead bodies. The government was not allowing them for burial, like having in our Islam janazas and all other. So those were the issues that we really have to understand. Thirdly, we have to change our food habit. Majority of the deaths that caused of the COVID was because of the earlier diseases that a human has. For example, obesity, antimicrobial resistance, antibiotic overuse. Those are the issues that scientists should be really working on. And thirdly, environmental issues. There you need to work across the boundary of the science, not only science, but also science and social sciences. They have to work together and they have to prepare themselves, God forbid, for the next pandemic that comes. And one very important issue is poverty and inequality. This pandemic doesn't look at who is rich and who is poor. Unless you secure every human, you cannot secure anybody else. So, and not only human, as I said, it's one health. You have to talk about environment, you have to talk about human and animals, three as a component, as one unit, and then the social phenomena of vaccine hesitancy, you have to talk about it. So what we need, like with UNESCO, we are working science with and for society, inclusive society for some sustainable development. You have engaged society in your science. There is a disconnect. Scientists are, happy in their own rooms, and the society doesn't know what's happening. So there is that, need to have this, you have to work with the media. The media is more, thrilled to have thrilled kind of news on their screens rather than having some information about scientific information. So there is that you have to really work with the people that had some good examples, as I said, across the continent, from global to Europe, North America, Asia, Oceanica, they work together to find cure. This vaccines and others cure that was reported so far, this is the recent article I'm quoting for you from Nature, that this was the result of joint, work across the globe with different people. There are some also very good herbal and other therapies that people have worked based on, not only just mouth say, but have clinical trials and, putting it forward to have at least boost your immunity. So you really need to have promote such kind of studies if you want to. Then, but there were some other issues that we're really talking about. If there was some paper, as already said by Kassar Jamila, but there were other papers reported from India and other countries that were really not up to the mark. Unconvincing data about some, there is money involved in it. Some pharmaceutical companies, they sponsored some studies and they sold their drugs overnight and make themselves billionaire. And then it was found, oh, sorry, it was not that convincing data. So what you need to do is you have to really work on not only psychological, but then pandemic, infodemic, countering counterfeit medical products. And where some, I'm quoting some of the information about like azithromycin, hydrochloroquine, remdesivir, dexamethasone, etc., etc. So there is that you really, there were some herbal drugs too that was really mentioned. But what you need to do is, I'm trying to be in my time, so I'm going very quick now from some of the side, that all of us have to work from scientists use the language of inspiration. Policy makers talk about hard rules and enforcement. So both of them, they have to work together if they have to have some policy. So integrity is not confined to preventing data fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism only. It is quality and relevance also. So there is that you have to work across the border. And these are the 5 principles for scientists on social media, that they have to, communication is two-way. You have to talk about the language of a common man, and you have to select the issue that you are talking about. You also may not fall prey to the wave of the misinformation that you spread it on your media. So that is that you have to really think, you have to socialize and strategize how to have this information. Sometimes, unfortunately, for example, we do science that is unethical. We spend a lot of money on that. The recent article that scientists in China is working to make a male a mouse to become pregnant, putting a lot of money on it. So this reckless kind of science, we had already a lot of issues that we were discussing it. So in this, we human has to realize, and scientists too, what is need to be done for the human, in the interest of the human, what we need. A little about open science, that we work under UNESCO for principles, practices, beneficiaries, and how can we really have the science to, good science to reach to the common man, how can we work on it? Professor Jamil has talked a lot about the publication. These are the number of the papers that were published in the, there is this, one estimate is 200,000 publication. Let me update you, Professor Jamil, by end of 2020 that were related to COVID. 200,000 papers, so fast. And some of them, they missed the basic principles of good science. And these are various disciplines and the countries that they published these 200 papers on pandemic, on COVID-19. And rightly said, I'm not talking about it, that the journal takes, a few days to publish it, but takes 2 months to retract it. It's not only retraction, but takes a lot of time to retraction. And then they still, scientists are citing those retracted paper. Already said, I'm just going to miss it. So we have to really work on it. As this forum, ACSC, they should be working, talking about it. Already some countries like OECD has given a lot of money, $7.5 billion for COVID R&D, $2 billion another dollar for international initiatives. So we have a lot of resources available. What we need to do is that we have to join and work together. But that too, again, based on ethical principle, because the publishing is now they say, oh Allah, we got more money and let's have more fun and more glory and more fame, rather than we should focus on the basic ethic principle. I just have drafted here for you: conflict of interest, informed concept, non-discrimination, non-exploitation, privacy, confidentiality, professional competence, and professional discipline. Thank you very much. I just completed in 18 minutes, Mariam. You should appreciate. Thanks to Mariam, Server, Rubina, and everybody else, Dr. Ghazi, for giving me opportunity, and hello to Dr. Kasatami. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zabta Khan Shinwari. I appreciate your time management. Thank you very much. It was really a comprehensive and very informative presentation. You have talked about the role of pseudoscience in this pandemic, and definitely you have highlighted some issues related to the pandemic, the global problems which can be resolved with the integration of medical sciences and social sciences. So thank you very much. So we have
Dr. Rubina, sorry to interrupt. I just need a few seconds to run the video so that you can next go for the next presenter. Thank you.
Okay. So we are going to see a video from Mariam. I think this is from our sponsor. Platinum sponsors.
I would really like to thank Trend MD for sponsoring 7th ACSC Annual Conference. And I truly believe that such industry academic organizations supporting such causes of non-profit organizations count a lot for academic as well as professional development of publishing industry.